Okay, we're back. Browns not quite on the clock yet. St. Louis is on the clock, then Minnesota, then Cleveland. And Chris, one of the things that I'm looking at is this is actually playing out very well for the Browns right now.
You're right.
There hasn't been a guy, maybe aside from Kevin White, but I don't know how many people expected Kevin White to be there. There hasn't really been a guy that has come off the board that you think, man, the Browns could have had him. I thought he was going to be there at 12.
Yeah, you're right. And thanks to the New York Giants for taking Eric Flowers. I have no clue. I don't know, Dan. He was not in my top 25 players. He did not make my big board. I think he benefited from La'el Collins dealing with the things that he's dealing with. Collins was a guy that had more talent. He always had more talent, but some teams have taken him off the board completely because of some of the things that he's dealing with off the field. So a huge reach, I would say, for the New York Giants in the top 10. At no point did I ever think that Eric Flowers from Miami was going to go top 10, but if you feel like he's got the tools to be a future left tackle, you've got a head coach in Tom Coughlin who's got a background in coaching up offensive linemen.
Okay, so Adam Kaplan has just tweeted out, like Adam Schefter said, Rams going to surprise here. Bold move, but get it. We'll explain after the pick. What does that mean?
Interesting. Well, then I'm saying it's Todd Gurley.
Okay. Is that...
That's my guess. I don't know.
Is that a bold move, though?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. I think so.
Yes.
Todd Gurley in the top 10. How often do running backs go in the top 10? I'd take him in the top 10. He's my third best player in this year's draft.
That's what I mean. I think there's people out there that see him as a top 10 guy.
Well, sure, but you also have a guy coming off a torn ACL, as Terry Pluto alluded to. He had that surgery in November. He might not be ready, Dan, for the start of the regular season. So if you're going to take a guy in the top 10, you want him there week 1, and there's just no guarantee that Gurley's going to be there. So if we're just going by what they're saying, a true surprise, my only guess is that it is Todd Gurley at number 10, trying to get in front of Minnesota at number 11, who maybe with the whole Adrian Peterson thing going on with the Vikings, maybe could have contemplated Gurley. The Browns at 12, 14 Miami, 16 Houston, 17 San Diego. It was the only chance for some team to get Todd Gurley, if this is what the pick is going to be.
All right, we'll see. I'm hoping it's like a ridiculous surprise, like they just go and get Bryce Petty or something like that. I hope it's just something completely insane.
All right, well, if you want another surprise, I'll throw one at you.
Okay. Just
to see how you're going to react. He played his college ball in the state before getting kicked out of the program. Dorial Green-Beckham.
That's true.
Look, if you want to take a risk on a guy in anticipation that he's got the goods to be one of the best wide receivers in the draft, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, guy's 6'5", 230 pounds. He's a physical freak of nature. The only thing wrong with him is all that other stuff, and there's a lot of that other stuff.
And if that stuff weren't there, he'd probably be the top receiver in this draft.
Dan, he's one of the most physically gifted players in this year's draft. So if we're talking about just splash picks, surprise picks, those would be the two that I would consider surprises.
Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Vikings are taking calls for a possible trade. There are 3 teams interested. The Vikings want to move back. And there you go. Your big surprise is Todd Gurley. I'm sorry. Do we need to take a minute?
Yes, let's take a break.
We're not taking a break. This is raw emotion right here. This is the real thing.
Well, this saves me the heartbreak of the Browns passing on Gurley if he would have been there at number 12. But, Dan, I thought Todd Gurley was the player that they absolutely needed to leave the draft with. And I know I got a lot of criticism on that one. But I just felt like where they were picking there at number 12 and number 19, there was no player that they could have drafted at that spot that would have been better than Todd Gurley or would have had more of an impact on this franchise than him. And now the Rams have ripped him away from me.
Sorry. You're going to pull through. You're going to get through this.
Man, that's a good pick by St. Louis.
Devontae Parker, that's another team that passed on him.
For every single team that doesn't have an elite quarterback, you have to find another way to function offensively. And if you're the Rams, you just traded for Nick Foles. He's not an elite quarterback. He's not a top 10 quarterback. They don't have great wide receivers. They've got that stifling defense. That defense, I'll put that defense up there with anybody. But if you're in St. Louis, you ask yourself, how do we function on offense? And right now, they have an answer. Before tonight's draft, they didn't have an answer.
Rappaport now reporting that the Browns are not getting calls. This, of course, is after his tweet about Minnesota trying to trade out. The Browns are not getting calls to trade down. Top flight talent off the board. Not a lot of action at number 12. And that's kind of the thing about this draft. It's sort of, it went as it was expected with the first 2 picks. Nobody moved around to get Marcus Mariota or anything.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of guys that you're going to move up for. Leonard Williams is a guy maybe you would have moved up for. There just aren't a lot of guys that you're going to say, if I miss out on him, my draft is done. So I don't know how much action we're actually going to see. I do think we'll see teams bailing out of the first round as we move along. We always do. Look, New England loves to bail out of the first round. So we'll see some of those teams towards the back end maybe bail out. And maybe that's a spot to watch the Browns if there's a guy they really like to move up with those 10 picks.
Yeah, I got to regroup here, Dan. I'm heartbroken.
This is going to be really hard for you. Why are people in St. Louis and then a year from now Los Angeles going to love Todd Gurley?
Well, because he's the kind of running back that gets more than what's blocked. Some guys need to have that great offensive line, or they've got to have that great quarterback or the great wide receivers, and they can't make things happen on their own. They just get what's blocked. Todd Gurley is a bull, and he'll plow through defensive linemen just the same, Dan, as he'll run away from cornerbacks. You don't see guys with his combination of size, speed, athleticism, agility, balance, vision, power. He checks every single box that you're looking for in a talented running back. Dan, he's being compared to Marshawn Lynch. Some people say that he's the best running back prospect since Adrian Peterson. That's how special this kid is. And oh, by the way, he's 20. And he doesn't have the carries that Melvin Gordon has. That's the other thing when it comes to Melvin Gordon. You're talking about a Wisconsin program that gave him the ball close to 500 times in the last 2 years. Gurley was in Georgia splitting carries, so he doesn't have the tread on his tires. And at 20 years old, I think the kid's a future star. And you got to be tough. You got to be physical in the NFC West. You're playing against Arizona. You're playing against San Francisco. You're playing against Seattle. And we're talking about one of the elite talents in this year's draft going to the Rams. And he's going to carry that offense the same way that Steven Jackson did for years.
All right, we are waiting on the Vikings. And then it's time, finally. The Cleveland Browns will go on the clock. We will, of course, stick with it all the way through the Browns pick, and then they'll go on the clock again at 19, we presume, unless they really want more draft picks.
Ready for it? Bold prediction time. What time is it? 9:18.
9:18. I'm writing this down.
Write it down.
9:18.
Todd Gurley, Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL.
I'm going to lose this sheet of paper by then, but I'll still write it down. Offensive Rookie
Take it to the bank.
of the Year.
You know what's amazing about Todd Gurley? I can just sing his praises all day long. As good of a running back
You're
he
dealing with
is,
this a lot better than I thought you would, actually.
as good of a running back as he is, he returned kicks at Georgia. And he took them to the house. He's 6'1", 235, and he returned kicks for touchdowns because he's that fast. He's a freak.
He's not doing that in the NFL, though.
No, he's too valuable in the NFL.
They're not going to expose him to that.
But that shows his breakaway speed and his game-changing ability.
Let me tell you about how NFL teams approach kick returners and protecting players. Do you remember the Browns in 2014 and how awful they were returning punts? And how they had a designated fair catch guy, Jim Leonard, who literally was just allowed to fair catch the football.
Yeah.
They still would not let Justin Gilbert, who did absolutely nothing his rookie year, they still would not let Justin Gilbert even try to return punts. NFL teams don't like to expose guys to that.
No, they don't.
So Todd Gurley's days are numbered as or pretty much over as a punt returner.
He could have changed this offense. This offense here in Cleveland, Dan, that averaged 18 points per game. this offense that scored 4 touchdowns in the last 5 weeks, he could have changed it all by himself because he extends drives. He moves the chains. He keeps your defense on the sidelines. All of those things may not show up in the stats, but it shows up when you play the games on Sunday.
Yeah.
Now Melvin Gordon, I think, is in play for the Browns, by the way, at number 19 or number 12.
He could be. The other thing, too, and you can make, Terry Pluto came on and made the case that you have Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell. But those guys aren't horses.
Right.
I mean, yes. Terrence West will get you 100 yards.
Right.
He's going to need 30 carries to do.
That's exactly right.
Isaiah Crowell he's explosive. He can get big runs, but he's not a guy you can hand the ball off to 20 to 25 times. He puts the ball on the ground. Like I said, he's explosive, but I don't know.
All right, let me put it this way. Right now, if someone were to ask you, Dan, who is the focal point of the Cleveland Browns offense? How do you answer that? How do you answer that?
You don't have a guy.
Exactly.
You don't have a stud anywhere.
Exactly. Who's the difference maker on the Cleveland Browns offense right now? You can't say Brian Hartline. You can't say Dwayne Bowe. Had Gurley been there at number 12, and I were to ask you that question at 9:45, Dan, who's the difference maker on the Browns offense? Who's the centerpiece of the offense? You would have been able to say Todd Gurley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if you take Devontae Parker here at number 12, and I say, who's the centerpiece of the offense? You can't say Devontae Parker. You could have only said that for one guy. That's why I'm devastated.
And again, it's why I look at this Browns team, and no matter what they do in this draft, I don't see a team that's going to win 9 games. I don't see a team that's going to win 8 games. I see a team that's going to step back win-wise from a year ago. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they won't necessarily be a better team.
Yeah.
If they add a guy like Danny Shelton or whoever it's going to be.
Well,
and by the way, Trey Waynes, cornerback, Michigan State, goes to Minnesota. So Cleveland, look, this worked out perfectly for Ray Farmer and the Browns.
Well, there's another name.
He can do whatever he wants right now.
There is another name, and let me just ask you this question. Who is the Browns wide receiver coach? The answer is Joker Phillips. You know what Joker Phillips did? He was the head coach at Kentucky. He recruited Alvin Bud Dupree to the Wildcats. So if there's a team that might have some inside information on a former basketball player, an athletic freak, somebody who can get pressure on the quarterback, it would be the Cleveland Browns, my friend.
Okay. I've liked Devontae Parker for a while.
I know you have.
He's a guy I like at wide receiver. I think he makes you better at that position. I think he's probably... I don't know if he projects ultimately as like a true number 1 receiver in the NFL. He's probably the Browns' number 1 receiver the minute he steps onto that stage, if that's who the name the Browns call. He's a guy that can make plays for him. I don't trust the guys throwing him the ball.
Right.
But
well, what was a problem last year for the Browns? Touchdowns.
Yep.
Devontae Parker, if you look at his career at Louisville, and yeah, he had Teddy Bridgewater throwing him the football for a lot of it. 33 touchdowns in 4 years. Dan, you do the math on that one. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's a guy who has a nose for the end zone. He makes the difficult catches look easy, and he catches everything thrown his way.
Yeah.
There's a spot for him on this roster, that's for sure. He would immediately come in and be the most talented guy.
We'll see what they do. The Browns are on the clock. Maybe it's time to start trying to get excited about a nose tackle. I don't know. Again, with Danny Shelton, look, he's a good player. You get a good player, but I'm not sure if he's the guy you want at number 12.
Okay. I think that's fair because, again, we go back to the whole thing of left tackle, cornerback, pass rusher, quarterback, center. Which one of those, the premier positions, do the Browns not have?
Well, they don't have a lot of them. Quarterback.
Well, obviously. Is there one available here?
No.
No. They've got the corner in Joe Hayden.
Yes.
They've got the left tackle in Joe Thomas.
They don't have a pass rusher.
They don't have a pass rusher. Think about that. That's why I think it's going to be Bud Dupree, actually.
And the other thing, too, is it's worth noting they did invest in the wide receiver position. They didn't get great guys. They got Dwayne Bowe. They got Brian Hartline. Last year they went out, they signed Andrew Hawkins. They found Taylor Gabriel out of the undrafted free agents. So they've invested some in this wide receiver group. They don't have a number 1 receiver, obviously.
They don't.
But Do you then invest more with your number 12 pick by getting Devontae Parker? Or do you go where I guess they've invested a lot in the pass rush too, though.
They
you can
sure
make
have.
That case.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
you're right. All right, so I think wide receiver is deeper.
Okay.
So they could get a wide receiver at number 19. They could get one at 43. If we're talking about trying to find a run-stuffing defensive tackle or a pass rusher, those aren't as deep. So Shelton makes a lot of sense here, too, at number 12. He has from the very beginning, hasn't he? Because the Browns were dead last in terms of stopping the run. There have been reports that people in Berea are trying to talk the Browns out of Danny Shelton. Seems to be a guy that's been on their radar for quite some time.
A list, NFL Network just tweeted out, by the way, going back to Trey Waynes, a list of wide receivers that Trey Waynes will have to face 2 times a year. Megatron, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Golden Tate, Alshon Jeffrey, and Kevin White.
Wow.
That'll be fun.
My goodness.
Welcome to the NFL.
Oh, my
Trey
goodness.
Waynes.
Wow.
He goes number 11 to Minnesota. The Browns essentially have their pick of a lot of the names that were out there. Obviously, Todd Gurley is not out there. Again, my condolences.
Still heartbroken, Dan.
Bud Shaw just walked into our studio, and he missed the whole display when Todd Gurley went to St. Louis. It was very depressing for Chris Fedor. We'll see how he feels, though, here and shortly when the Browns make their first pick in the second round. I'm looking right now at the Browns' off-field issues that ESPN is showing. Johnny Manziel in rehab. Josh Gordon suspended for the 2015 season. Mike Pettin let it be known that Justin Gilbert was dealing with, quote, personal issues or a personal issue. And Ray Farmer suspended 4 games for texting during games, for texting down to the sideline.
Yeah.
That was part of Kyle Shanahan's PowerPoint presentation, I would assume. Many of those were likely on the list of things that he included in that. But it is going to be Danny Shelton, the pick for the Cleveland Browns. So they do what every mock draft, most mock drafts have been doing. They go nose tackle. Their defense is better now than it was 5 minutes ago. It's not an exciting pick. It's not a sexy pick. It's not a pick that I love. But you think this defense, at least, again, we're projecting, and maybe this goes against the whole show me thing, but you think right now the defense is better than it was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and it shows you that the Browns value a defensive lineman more than they value a wide receiver, because you had one of the big 3 wide receivers in Devontae Parker still available. But the Browns, obviously, they're going to have to stop the run. Think about the division again, Dan. Justin Forsett had a terrific year for Baltimore last year. Jeremy Hill was a second-round pick for the Cincinnati Bengals last year. Gio Bernard the year before that. And, of course, Pittsburgh has Le'Veon Bell, one of the best young running backs in the NFL. If you want to win inside your division, you have to build a team that can win inside the division. And now Danny Shelton gives you a fighting chance to try and slow down some of these rushing attacks in the AFC North.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You've still got Josh McCown, Johnny Manziel, Thad Lewis, Connor Shaw. You're probably not going to do much better at quarterback unless you figure out a way to trade for Sam Bradford or something, and even that isn't that much better at quarterback because who knows if he can stay healthy. So you better build up that defense.
Yeah.
Because you're going to score about 17 a game. So you better have a defense that's going to allow about 14 a game. Mm-hmm. And this is one way to do it.
Think about last year, Alfred Blue. Who is he? He's the guy that ran for 150 against the Browns in the place of Arian Foster.
Denard Robinson is another one.
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
The guy from Baltimore, I can't pronounce his name unless I actually see the spelling in front of me.
Lo Taliaferro.
There you go, yes.
And another thing to think about is just the Browns' defensive line. They brought in Starks from Miami, but he's not this kind of guy. Everybody's going to have a specific role. Everybody's going to have a specific skill set. Starks is not going to play on the nose and occupy blockers and try and get the linebackers to make some plays. That's not his game. Phil Taylor is in the final year of his contract. Ataba Rubin is gone. So you don't have anybody on this defensive line that brings the things that Danny Shelton brings. You don't have that run stuffer. You've got some versatile guys that can play a bunch of different places and do a bunch of different things, but you don't have the big boy who's going to be a butt kicker out there.
By the way, Danny Shelton holding up the brown jersey.
Oh, they went with brown, huh?
Yeah, they went with the new brown because they know that the brown on orange is the way to go. They're smart. They understand all this. They did like years of research on this. So Danny Shelton gets the brown number 1 jersey for the Browns. Again, not a sexy pick, but it's a pick that hopefully makes that defense better and fills a need. Because really, you were looking at a situation where you're kind of grasping at straws. Oh, Armani Bryant's coming back. Oh, maybe Phil Taylor will be healthy. And still, none of those guys play the position that Danny Shelton plays and that you need at that nose tackle position. So the Browns, they couldn't get Leonard Williams. They get Danny Shelton. That's the pick at number 12, and now we begin to look ahead to number 19.
Now you think wide receiver, pass rusher, probably, right? Maybe offensive tackle?
One of those two. Well, see, offensive line is still on the board. I mean, you could go offensive lineman because, you don't know what Alex Mack is going to do at the end of this year. Maybe you don't trust Mitchell Schwartz.
Yeah.
I mean, offensive lineman is not off the board. They could certainly go that route if they don't like any of the that second group of wide receivers, because you assume Devontae Parker is going to go sometime between now and 19.
Well, let's look at the teams that could take him. I think you start there with Houston.
Yeah.
Houston there at number 16 makes some sense for
one that I
Devontae
looked
Parker.
at, yep.
I don't
You got it, because
necessarily
listen,
think
when you have Brian Hoyer, you go get Brian Hoyer weapons.
right.
That's how it works.
Or Ryan Mallett. You're assuming that Brian Hoyer is going to be the starting quarterback in Houston, aren't you?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I don't think San Francisco there at number 15 would go wide receiver. Kansas City could. They went out this offseason, brought in Jeremy Maclin, but they could, I guess.
So, I mean, there could be.
There's a possibility that he's there at number 19, Dan. There really is.
Would Miami want to go wide receiver?
Boy, I don't think so.
I don't either. But
They've revamped that whole thing this offseason with Greg Jennings, Kenny Stills, Jordan Cameron.
Oh, Jordan Cameron. All right, we are going to take a break here. It is now to the New Orleans Saints. They are on the clock. The Browns take Danny Shelton, number 12. We'll talk more about that. We'll look ahead to number 19. Oh, we're going to talk to Bud Shaw as well. We're going to take a quick break here on our show.